Hey students, Eric Magidson here. We are on part 2 of the Excel Basic Functions Lab. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. We were on LPGA 4, finish 3. This function says insert a function in the yellow cell above that will sum the winnings for all players who scored less than par, less than 72 in all 3 rounds. Now this one can be tough because they need to have scored less than 72 in all 3, not just in one of the 3. What that means is we need to go ahead and check round 1, round 2, and round 3. And then we're going to sum the winnings for any player that scored less than 72 in all 3 rounds. Okay? So they have to score less than 72. Clearly, this first player here is going to be included. So would this player, so would this player, so would this player. But let's go ahead and do it an easier way. So here's how we do it. First of all, we're not looking for an average. We're looking for a sum. Read the question carefully and read it slowly. So we're looking to sum the winnings if they meet 3 different criterias. Well, I'm going to put this in the yellow box. I'm going to come up to my functions, and I'm going to see if there's a function that might work for us. Well, we know we want to sum, and we know we want to sum if, but if it meets 3 things, so plural, sum ifs. There's a sum ifs function. It says adds the cells specified by a given set of conditions or criteria. So we have 3 conditions it has to meet, correct? They need to be less than 72 in round 1, less than 72 in round 3, and less than 72 in round 4. Now again, let me remind you, go ahead and pull this worksheet, watch the video as you do it, but pause it, try it on your own, come back, make sure you've gotten the right answer. So the sum range is the actual cells to sum. Well, the actual cells that I want to sum is this range right here. I can choose it from bottom up or top down. So J3 through J80, the first criteria range. Let's read what this says here. It says, is the range of cells you want evaluated for a particular condition? Well, the first range I want is right here, round 1. So I'm going to do that. The criteria, if you remember, they had to score less than 72. Well, that same criteria is going to hold for G, is it not? So this time I'm going to do G. And again, less than 72. I'm going to hit the tab key. And now I'm going to check round 3. So again, I'm looking for players who have scored, tab, less than 72 in round 1, round 2, and round 3. So there's, round 1, round 2, round 3, and I'll say okay. And I'm going to put a $sign on this because I was summing dollars. So it looks like $884,140 were for players that scored less than 72 in all 3 rounds. So notice here, this player here would not have been counted because they had a round where they scored exactly 72 and we wanted less than 72. Now, folks, I'm going through this quick. It's late. If you do find an error, one that you don't think I did correctly, just let me know and I'll double check it. Insert a function in the yellow cell above that will count the number of players who were under par in today's round. So instead of saying, true or false or yes or no or par or under par, we just want to count the number of players who were who were under par in today's round. Under par in today's round. So we don't know which round was today's. We would assume it to be 3, but we could do it based on today. Well, let's go read the question again. And it says, who were under par in today's round, which means it needs to be, if they're under par, they have a negative. what do you want to bet? I can say, and it says count the number of players. Well, I could certainly come up here and start by saying, okay, that person wasn't under par. This person was. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. But you could see how I might miss somebody. And what if there was 1,000 players? Well, count gives me a hint. I'm going to go up to the function, more functions, and I'm going to say count if. There's only one criteria, right? If they were under par in today's round. So I'm going to say count if. There is a COUNTIF function, counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. So I'm going to say, okay, that sounds like my formula. Range is the range of cells for which you want to count non-blank cells. Well, I can count the same column that I'm going to test. The criteria. Well, it's got to be less than 0, doesn't it? In order to be under par, they had to be a -1, which would be under par. Even means they are par, so I don't have to check the even. So there's the criteria in which the condition and form. Okay, so that looks good, and I'll say, okay. So they say 42 players. Well, quickly I could go check, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So I am right, 42 players. Now remember on the exam, you can't just put 42. The idea is that you use the function to do it, which makes it faster. Here it says, insert a function in the yellow cell above that will average the winnings for every player with a total score of less than or equal to 216. So we want to average the winnings. It looks like one criteria, so I'm going to come up here. I'll use my function arguments box. Average if. So average if says range is the range of cells you want evaluated. Well, winnings for every player with a total score of 216 or less. So I want to evaluate the range of total scores. For the criteria, we said less than or equal to, correct? Less than or equal to 216. So I'm going to say less than or equal to 216. And the range I want to average is average the winnings. So I'm going to average the winnings for all players who scored less than or equal to 216. Now you can see how this works a lot better than having to figure out which ones, highlight them, add them together, etc. So there we go. Put a little $ action on there. Looks like $22,000 for players who scored less than or equal to 216, and that seems low. Let me go look at my formula. Let me open up the functions dialog box. So I want to check here if it's less than or equal to 216, then average. Oh, average, I was thinking sum. Okay, so it is average. The average amount a player earned was $22,000. Let's go look at a chart. It says insert a 3D pie chart below that will represent the totals for each item. So I want to do the items and the totals. Now, here is the key for doing charts. Okay, I'm going to insert a chart. But first, I need to select the range. The key is this. You must have the same number of cells in every column you want to choose. So I can't just do, I could certainly do this. Okay, but I also want to always try to include the column headings. And the reason for that is, I'll show you on another chart, if I don't put the column headings, then when I have X and Y axis, there are no labels on them. Here, we're just going to do a pie chart, so it's not really going to include that. but I'm going to say, it says insert a 3D pie chart. So pie chart, here's 3D. It didn't say to do a 3D exploded. It just said a 3D. So there's a pie chart in 3D. And there is my values. Oh, wait a minute. Something looks funky. Oh, look, there's totals. I don't want to include totals because notice my totals take up half of the pie chart. So let's go back. We never want to include totals. I want to do that and control for each item. It said each item, not each item's in total, right? I'm going to come up here to insert a pie chart, 3D, and now I get a really great pie chart that represents my data. Now I want to encourage you, go ahead and play with pie charts. You notice you've got some design changes you can do. You've got some layout things you can do. I could put a chart title on there. I could put data labels in the center here to make it easier to read. I just encourage you, go make good charts. So it says, using the data on the financial functions information worksheet, create a 3D column chart that represents the profit and loss each stock. Copy the chart below. So I want to go do something with profit and loss. Now this one can be rather difficult because if you notice, there's some profits and some losses that are really close to the line. And that wasn't the intention, but let's go take a look. So here's financial information, and I want to do profit and loss for each stock. Which chart did I want to do? Well, let's go take a look again. Chart 2, I wanted to do a 3D column chart. So I'm going to go all the way back, 3D column chart. So again, I need to pick the stock, no totals, the profit and loss. I'm going to insert a column chart, a 3D column chart. So there's a 3D column chart. Now from here, I can just right click, cut the chart, come back to chart 2, and paste it in. Can make it a little bit bigger. And I can see that the difficult thing with this is I can't tell which ones are profit and which ones are loss. What I would do if I was presenting this data is I would do a chart for the ones that were profitable and a chart for the ones that were not. So let me show you how I might do that. I'm going to go ahead and say stock. General Electric was the first one. So I'm hitting and holding the control key. Now I'm going to select all of the profit stocks. All of the positive value stocks. Because if you notice, my losses were all sort of under $1,000. So there's my profit stocks there. I'm going to say insert. I'll do a 3D column chart. So there's all my profit. So I would come up here and just change this to profit stocks. And then I could change that as well. I'm going to leave it just so I can move on real quick. Now let me go ahead and do the losses. So here's a stock. Remember, I want to grab the column headings. I'm going to come down to my first loss, which was Ford Motor Company. My second was UPS. My third was Cascade Bancorp, and my fourth loss, Citigroup. So now that I have these selected, I'm going to go insert, column chart, that, and notice I'll have to do some moving around of some columns and things to make it look good, but this would be my, whoops, these would be my loss stocks. Then I could present both of these together, and notice this way I see that what my losses are compared to what my profits were. So that's how I might present that data to make it more legible and readable. So let's see. This one says insert a 3D column chart that represents the January, March, and May figures for each item. January, March, and May, which means I'm going to skip some. 3D column chart. Well, real quick, let me show you an example. I wanted to show you an example of what happens if I don't pick the column headings. So I'm going to say I'll pick the types. We wanted January, so I'm hitting and holding the control key. I do the first column, hit and hold the control key while I select my other data. And notice I select it in a sequence. So from left to right, always a good idea. I'll insert, column chart, 3D. So there's my column chart. But notice it says Series 1, Series 2, Series 3. I don't know what a series is. Let's see what happens if I had picked the column headings. I'm going to do it again. I'm not going to include the totals. There's my control. There is January. There's March. And there is May. Insert, column chart, 3D. Much better chart. Now I know what each column represents. So why is graphing data important? Well, real quickly, I can see that gifts in May was my highest revenue item. My least revenue item looked to be books in January. Books in January. So you get the idea? Now, from the data I've presented here, you could create hundreds of different types of charts. So what do I want you to do? Play with it. Go ahead and create more charts. Let's do the last chart for part 2, and then I'll do a part 3. It says insert a line chart that shows all 3 rounds for each player listed by last name. Exchange the axis so that each round is grouped. So I want to group by round, but I want to do player's last name. So here's, this would actually be player last. And it should be down here as well, player last. There we go. So I want to group by player last name. I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose, hit the control key and choose all 3 rounds. Oops, notice how I had an extra cell there? That would have really messed up my data. There we go. We want to do a insert a line chart. Doesn't say 2D or whatever, so we'll come here. We'll do a line chart. I'm just going to do a 2D line chart. There we go. Now that looks kind of funny, doesn't it? Now why all the series? Well, let's go ahead and take this, come over here, and we're going to switch the axis in the chart. So let me remember how to do that. You know what? That chart looked wrong. Let me try that again. Let me make sure I selected the data right. So I'm selecting the player last. I'm going to hit control. I'm going to do round 1, 2, and 3. Insert, line chart, 2D. Now that looks much better. Now we have players' names and rounds. Now what we wanted to do, however, was actually have them grouped by round, not by player. Change the axis so that each round is grouped. Well, let me change the axis. And the way I do that is come to design, switch row columns. And so now I have round 1, round 2, and round 3. Now this is a little bit hard to read. I would go ahead and make some adjustments to the chart, but you get the idea. All right, so this is part 2. I'll be back with part 3 shortly.